is the shamelessness that right now the correct decision when you're on the board of governors is to screw the workers, because the profit motive is the one that is important. There's an interesting thing by Eric Weinstein. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And this little snippet was really important because he talked about an American CEO who said, well, on one hand, and he was talking about the pandemic and not having enough medical equipment and things. So in the really early stages, like, we're fucked, we don't have enough of anything. And he said, well, unfortunately, when you're on the board of directors, you can scream to bloody hell that it's like, to be a patriotic American, I say we do not move this production to China. But, and so I vote no. I vote no to move it to China. However, I turn around and become the member of the board, and I have to vote yes, move that production to China, even though it hurts your fellow citizens to do that, because you have to have a certain capacity in your own country. And it's not necessarily a nationalist thing. It's just you need things close enough to get to you when the shit hits the fan.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
What's the incentive? Sorry for being dumb. What's the incentive for saying yes?
Oh,
being
it's
on
money.
board and needing because it's cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so you can be a patriotic American and say, we have to have a certain amount of cancer drugs being manufactured in the United States. However, it's going to be cheaper if we do it elsewhere.
Here's another dumb question. I don't know why everything in China is cheaper. Like, do they have a certain material that they make things out of, or is it that their labor laws are different, or?
Yeah, it's wages. Yeah.
So then,
and they were a developing country. So when this got all started, it was extremely advantageous to do production in China. But that has expanded out to other low-wage countries. And this is what the capitalist system will always do. No matter how unionized you get, no matter how much you fight, the guys on the boards of directors are always going to say, I hear what you're saying, Max. We're all doing a great job here in Alberta, Canada. However, we just got these people in Bangladesh that are willing to do it for a tenth of the cost.
right.
And that's just where the rubber meets the road in terms of capitalism. Is we've unfortunately advanced the system of capitalism to have only this one small, very, very narrow way to judge all activities, and it is profit. It is always the profit motive. Whereas in the past, capitalism was actually a lot more kind because it was on the ground. Like in 1885, you knew who you're trading things with, and that there are certain considerations that actually hurt you as a business person. If you have, say, a small factory in 1885 in a village with 120 people, and then you discover that, 20 miles down the road, you can save money, but you're going to have to fire all the people in your factory. You live in a village of 120 people. It's probably good for your own survival to go, well, I think I kind of just want to keep it the way we're going right now, or else these motherfuckers are going to put those pitchforks up my ass. It's
Mm.
like there was a certain motivation, and that to have more community because it's manageable, it's within the community. But as we got more and more technologically advanced and able to span the globe, capitalism just became less and less workable in every community. It was profitable to just pack it up and leave and go to
Mm.
China, go to Bangladesh, India, wherever you got to go to save a buck. Now, there's another side of this though. Is we're moving towards hopefully what is a goal of things costing almost nothing. Because of course, the next wave is not cheaper human laborers, it's robots.
Mm.
There's more and more and more and more robots doing more and more and more and more things. Um, in fact, if we all sort of chilled out and consumed less, we're probably already uh, way beyond the point where robots could do almost all of our labor for us. If we all had just simpler lifestyles,
Oh man.
yeah, if we just didn't consume so much, we could all probably have we'd all have a part-time job essentially,
Hmm.
just enough to to help the robots do all the production.
But
We're pretty darn
you
close.
you know what? There's a about a year ago I was looking into an automatic. It's like I don't know, maybe a 4 foot by 6 foot rectangular um, growing like vegetable garden machine that
Yeah,
you could put in your backyard, and it was
yeah.
only like a few $1,000s, which for me and for a lot of people that's like a lot of money. But at the same time, I would be willing to like eat that cash to get one of those things for like a long-term use. I think that would be incredible. That'd be amazing. And
Yeah,
then you're like, what do you buy the seeds, a little bit of maintenance for the machine? Maybe that's where your cost comes from. So I don't know, but that would be pretty cool. Have a few chickens in the
definitely.
backyard. Sorry, back to this idea.
Well, have you read much about universal basic income?
Ah, I was gonna drop that bomb like half an hour ago. Yeah, I haven't read much about it. I just heard the term thrown around a little bit, and I was like, when you were talking about bringing everyone up to out of poverty, out of health poverty,
Yep.
that sort of thing. I was gonna drop that one on you. Give me some of that.
Well, it's the idea that if we just give people an amount of cash, that they will figure out how to solve a lot of their problems. So, wow, we've come full circle because I've mentioned here and there a lot of socialist ideas, but I'm also libertarian. I think this fits the libertarian idea very well, that a universal basic income, or what some libertarians have called a negative income tax. But essentially what it is it just an acknowledgement that we have all gotten to this point on this planet together through the ideas of billions of people over thousands of years. And now we're all just sharing in the dividends of humanity's advancement. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so
Wow.
it's just, we all get a small portion, and then we all just come to a place where it's like, yes, you're now a participant in the game. To bring it back to Monopoly, it's as if we are bringing people into our system world, our capitalist world, and saying, guess what? You get to play in Monopoly. Guess what? You start with zero. And by the way, you only get to roll one dice. Well, these guys, they roll 12 dice. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hmm.
So they just own everything. And they, the very, very tippy top, um, they are taking all of the dividends from all of human innovation from all time. That's how you end up with Jeff Bezos at 200, almost $200 billion of net worth. Come on,
Bananas.
that's no one's worth that much. Do you think God would look down and say, "This little tiny human being is worth $200 billion to the human family"? No, he was in the right place at the right time, and he did a lot of good. He probably had to work hard, but it's definitely a combination of hundreds of probably millions of people to make that company work. That company doesn't work if nobody shows up to work. If let's just bring it all the way back. How the hell does Amazon exist in a world that doesn't have a very, very simple, well, actually, it's more than simple, but a very simple discovery that we forget about? Mathematics. It was invented thousands of years ago. But how the hell do you have computers without mathematics? And the thousands of years worth of working on mathematics to get it to a point of being able to do what Amazon does in terms of advanced robotics and systems and all that. Come on. This is not the work of one man. That's insane. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so this universal basic income is an acknowledgement that we are actually a human family and that we all deserve to share in this a little bit. And it might, and this is my hope, I hope it leads to an explosion of freedom and creativity. Just not worried about the bullshit anymore, you know?
Yeah. I feel like the creatives would drastically be, I mean, maybe this is where we're headed and maybe this will happen. I think there has been some people that have talked about a universal basic income, and was it shit, it's not Tesla.
Well, Andrew Yang ran for president in the States, and he had a very interesting campaign. He had quite a bit of popularity on the internet, quite a bit of popularity from young people, and a lot of crossover with folks like myself that might be considered a Bernie bro. It's like, sure, I like Bernie Sanders, but I don't know why the hell I'm a Bernie bro. But a lot of crossover in terms of his campaign. So that is where the discussion is going, whether the owners of the country like it or not. That is what the population is going to talk about. And particularly right now when we're in this COVID-19 situation, we have to consider, well, what the hell are you going to do? We have a crisis of consumption right now. The renters, did we talk about this earlier? The renters got to pay the rent. It goes upwards. Mm-hmm. So the UBI is that basic level of money so that it keeps circulating upwards. And no one's ever like freaking out about absolute, complete disaster level poverty at any one particular moment. You always know there's some more revenue coming in. In a way, it's a way to also acknowledge that every human being is intelligent, and rather than being, this may sound weird, but rather than being human beings, we can all be little businesses for ourselves.
Yes, I love this. Okay, sorry. Can I riff off that, or were you done with that?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking about, because you were talking about a company and how right now, okay, I'm going to use this and lead off into another question that I have written down for you. Hopefully, if, I think we're over an hour now, but.
Wow, an hour goes by so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, video number 3, and I feel like we're hitting a bit of a stride maybe. after.
Well, maybe let's say we've got about, say, 20 more minutes then, a maximum.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so you were talking about right now a lot of the people who we thought were not essential services are now we're realizing that they are pretty essential. Um, and like warehouse operators and managers, things like that. And I was thinking about our brother. Uh, should I use his name? Is that okay? I think it's probably okay.
Sure, why not? You can just keep going.
Okay. Well, okay. So Derek worked for a company, and his over time he's developed a very strong sense of warehouse management, and so, but he works for a company and a big company here in Calgary, or worked before COVID-19. They're still figuring that out, and as you were saying, the people in the warehouses, his image, like I really work a lot with images and examples. That's how if I'm able to see it and feel it and have an example, I can understand it better. But so when you were mentioning warehouse managers, warehouse people, garbage truck drivers, different things like that, grocers, I picked up Derek as my example, and I thought, okay, well, what if, for example, to keep going on this entrepreneurial thing. It's not for everyone, but if we had more of that, where the company that Derek works for, they contract out the services not as like an employee, like Derek's an employee of this bigger company, and there's this trickle down effect of that, but he owns his own warehouse company, or he's his own warehouse managing firm or something like that. Yeah. So okay, just a thought, and then I was going to bounce off into this because it seems like you have a concern for the working class and the people who are not at the top. It seems like, I don't know if I have that correct, but
Definitely. Yeah, and this is partly connected to what you were just saying. I find it disturbing that the trend over the past, say, 50-ish years is to diminish the value of human contribution to any enterprise. And that's a very dangerous place where the only thing we actually value is ownership and ownership making money. And so, you talked about Derek and I was like, well, yeah, like managing the warehouse, it's a human contribution to the process. And I think humanity deserves the right to be able to trade that with the world, because this is what a human being does. I think we're getting to this weird place where we are somehow hoping that human beings will become a species that they are not. You have to look at the ground and look at the people around you. Do you think that dude that's been driving a truck for 38 years is all of a sudden going to figure out, oh, now I'm going to be an internet coder? The fuck no. Yeah, he's 50 fucking 8 years old. Like it's going to take, he probably can do it,
mm-hmm.
but it takes too long. By that point, he's living on the street and he has no money. And also, that's just the bottom layer. Like to be a coder, what's it going to be 30 years from now? Do you want me to just like sort of plug myself into the matrix to add value and become a non-human being? I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
I kind of went on a tangent there.
Wow, that was intense.
And actually, like in too many workplaces now, the expectation of a just average employee is just getting ridiculous.
As in the expectations are high?
Oh, crazy high.
Yeah.
Like Amazon warehouses that track your every movement.
Oh, wow.
Like, it, like you're docked pay if you take too long in the bathroom. We're not talking like long in the bathroom. We're talking milliseconds. You go a couple milliseconds over your 15-minute break, boom, you're losing money. And it's like, well, wait a second.
Hmm.
People have different biological needs, and I think we have no respect for that anymore. We are all robots working with the robots. No, we're not robots.
Yeah.
We're human beings. And
Okay.
I do see this a lot where there are fairly high functioning human beings who will be judgmental of lesser capable human beings in a workspace. They'll be like, yeah, those fucking lazy fucks over there, they never work as fast as I do. I've been victim to that kind of thinking before, but I step back now as a more mature human being and think, oh, I was so unfair to have that thought of that person, because of course that person is not me and they don't have the same experiences as me. And I should also consider that I was working faster in that moment because that's what works for me. I don't know how to work at that slower pace, but
Hmm.
they do. And they'll probably get quicker because, they'll learn different ways. And maybe I should see myself as, oh, if I just do it the way I'm doing it, maybe they'll see, oh, that thing that Darcy's doing, that seems really efficient.
Hmm.
Maybe we should do it that way.
Hmm.
But, once again,
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think there's a statistic where it's like it's either 10 or 20% of a company, 10 or 20% of the people's company do like 80% of the work. Like that's generally a, another one of those kind of Pareto distribution phenomenons. And so I was always wondering about that. Like there's these complex problems and people like we don't know. I don't, maybe someone's figured it out, but there, and I like the idea of having that polar opposite ideas where you're talking about socialism and libertarianism and how you're a socialist libertarian. I kind of like those. There's an awesome book by a guy named Jocko Willink who talks about the dichotomy of leadership. And he talks about basically opposites, how it's like you can't be so completely rigid, but you also can't be too flexible either. And finding that
mm-hmm.
balance. And the thing is that's the cool thing is that balance is always moving. You got to be on it. Maybe that's where the secret lays. But I wanted to ask you one more question, if that's okay. And I wrote a couple things out before we started the podcast. Are we doing a podcast?
I guess it's some sort of a podcast.
Okay, I could try and rip the audio and get a podcast going. Um, it was on. There was a video of these two ER doctors that were talking about. They're in the States. I think they're in California
Okay.
somewhere. Maybe in Loma Linda. I don't know if you know the video.
I know the video you're talking about. Two guys, blue. They're sitting on a table. Okay,
Yeah,
fire
it's some
away.
kind of press conference or something. I was wondering
Yeah.
what your take on was with that in regards to. It seems like because this coronavirus is new, it's like everybody's political ideologies are just kind of like thrown into the middle, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh, what, what idea should I take?" And they're always used to, like my thoughts are, there's a large chunk of people, like 80 to 90%, who follow their friends or their famous people that they like on YouTube or different icons or whatever. And so if that person has that idea, okay, I'm going to go with them. And I was wondering, right now it seems like weird because there's all these ideas and issues that are coming up that are controversial, and it feels like people are kind of wishy-washy on how they feel about these topics. And so I was wondering about your thoughts on, because these two ER doctors were talking about how they think it's, they have the stats and it's no different than the COVID-19 is no different than in the way that it affects the community. than the flu virus, and people should be going back to work. Like, we don't treat the flu virus like this. Why are we
Yeah.
so people are losing money? And so my question was, it's confusing because like, I know that you have a strong heart for the working class, and then at the same time there's also these people that are saying no, don't go out. And it's kind of like both camps are using compassion as their platform for putting out their ideas,
Hmm.
but they're both opposing views using compassion, like having compassion for different or the same people, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's a good way to put it. That if we go on the understanding that at the heart of it, people are fighting for what they think is right, but they're taking different paths. And there is this really interesting irony to the situation where it's like, well, do I have the opinion that maybe workers should be cautious in going back to the workplace because they will be more exposed to the virus? Or should I have the opinion that, well, they need income and money, so they
Mm.
should go back to the workplace?
Hmm.
Now, in the United States, I think that is a very big different situation from the rest of the world, because what they forgot to do in the United States was pay people to shelter in place.
Mm.
Essentially, in most places, you got a shelter in place order, and the government didn't care at all whether or not you have an income. Um, they just said, well, fuck you, you shelter in place. And then it took forever to get out a $1,200 check. Now, in most modern countries, they either put in place, like here in Canada, the emergency response benefit, or in other countries, a wage subsidy, so that you actually didn't even lose your job. You're still on the payroll of a company, and their central banks are just giving money to the company to say, yeah, just keep paying your workers, because we want you to still have those people on staff. So when we do open back up again, all your workers didn't go find new things to do. They're still there.
Hmm.
Um, and so this idea has been polarized very much in the United States, and it's been polarized to what I think is a very narrow debate. I've seen the doctors you talked about, um, and it seemed like what they were saying is always with the end goal of, we must open up the economy. And that's a very sort of um, massive undertaking of, well, are we actually completely shut down? That's a great question. In fact, they're not.
Hmm.
Banks are open, insurance companies are open, most educational institutions are open.
Hmm.
There's obviously healthcare is open. There's a bunch of parts of the economy that are actually still open. It's just certain parts of the economy are closed. So number one, you kind of got to define, what do you mean open? So no one is being very specific with, well, which parts do you want to open? And what I found really interesting with the two doctors is, they say some interesting things, um, but some of the focus of what they were saying was incomplete information.
Hmm.
And they say, well, X number of the population. And this is something specific they said. A percentage of the population has gotten this virus, and they say that's extremely low, and they compare it to the flu. And it's like, wow, you just made a fundamental sort of error right there. You have incomplete information to make that comparison. The flu, we have the complete information on that. We just don't have the complete information on COVID-19. So when he says that point, I'm like, why did you say that? You know, you're a doctor, you're a scientist. You should know that the correct answer is we don't know. That is the correct answer. Now, when he said other points about this has an impact on people's mental health and their behaviors, and that, you know, domestic violence is on the rise, and I'm like, yeah, these are all good points and things that should be considered. That there is a price to pay from a health point of view to have shelter in place orders, and they are calculations that must be done. Now, I don't often listen to a guy named Ben Shapiro, but I did listen to what he had to say, and I thought it very interesting that he mentioned that everyone is making that calculation. And that was his criticism of course, he's always criticizing the Democrats. He's saying the Democrats are not telling you that they're actually making a calculation of how many people are going to die from coronavirus versus how many are going to die from shelter in place orders and devastation to economy and all that. That is the calculation that is being made. And he's saying, oh, the Democrats are trying to tell you that they're not making that calculation. Now that's in the Ben Shapiro way, because he's always got to like blame someone else. That's the problem I always have with Ben Shapiro. It's like, why don't you just stick to the fact that it's the calculation that people are making. And it's a difficult calculation. And I think we all have to just sort of start getting comfortable with the idea that there's not a single damn human being at all that's going to make a perfect calculation on these things. That's not possible. We just don't have enough information on all of those pieces of evidence. So, you know, when there's a lot right now, it's just the agenda of just open it all up, open it all up. It's such a narrow concept that things are just going to magically change.
Okay.
Someone made a very, bold, harsh decision at the beginning because there was so little we knew. But then when change from a big, bold decision, changing it back with another big, bold decision is just as risky as the original big, bold decision. So you have a big, bold decision. It's like, okay, what can we do now? Now we're at this point. We're at this point. Maybe we should change this element and this element and this element. And then we'll get to here, And then we can change this and this and that. And then gradually come out of this big, bold decision. Am I right? I have no idea. No one has any idea. And it's unfortunate that those two ER doctors, that their video has gone so viral.
I also saw it taken down too, actually.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So my last question, if I can shotgun this off real quick. If I got libertarianism correct, it would assume that people have the freedom to choose their future or choose what they do and have more freedoms, right?
Yeah. However, an honest libertarian would admit that we don't actually choose anything. We're not really in control. We'll do the best we can. We can decide at the moment how we want to deal with things, but ultimately our fate is really a pretty nebulous thing that we're not in control of the whole universe. So are we free to pursue whatever we want? A pandemic or an asteroid will decide that better than we will.
So we can negotiate with nature.
Yes. Yeah. We can't negotiate with nature. That's a really good way to put it. Nature is non-negotiable. I think a lot of people forget that. Yeah.
So, the the lead up to that question was, do you think people should, after talking about the ER doctors video, do you think people should have the freedom, like I think in, is it Sweden, where they just said, you guys should be super cautious here, but we're going to let you do, we're going to give you the freedom to do what you want. I don't know if it was Sweden, but do you think people
Sweden.
should, okay, do you think people should have the freedom to do that? Or do you think that government intervention was appropriate? Maybe I think it was appropriate. Everyone seems to agree. A lot of people seem to agree on that. But is it appropriate, or from a libertarian perspective, or I don't know.
Libertarians are saying essentially, trust us, we will all do the right thing.
Mm.
And there is something to be said about that, that everyone will behave in an appropriate manner given the circumstances. However, in a society like the United States, it's just, you don't have to go far to find people that are not cooperating. They're just doing whatever the hell we want. There are plenty of honest, good-hearted libertarians who understand, yeah, okay, COVID-19 is real. It wasn't created by Bill Gates. Has nothing to do with 5G towers. It's not some plot from China. It's a disease, and yes, we get it. We have to minimize the spread of the disease, but we're also libertarian, and we're suggesting we can do it on our own with not a lot of help from government regulations that don't give us any flexibility.
Mm.
So is there something to be said of that? In Sweden, there actually is a much better case for it, because in Sweden, culturally, they're a lot more trusting of their government. They're a lot more trusting of each other. They have a lot more synergy in their community. So they all did abide by the few restrictions that were put on them, and they actually, they obeyed them very well. Also, there's just a whole bunch of differences. Actually, I made a video, I put it out this morning exactly on this topic, that Sweden is an incredibly different place. It's like comparing apples to oranges, essentially. So, look at Sweden, population of about 10 million, United States, about 330 million. The densest city, we know COVID-19 is really bad in dense populations. New York City, it's like over 20 million people. Stockholm, Sweden, it's like 1.4 million people. And on top of that, Stockholm, Sweden is on these little islands. So there's geographical divisions right inside of their most dense population. And here's another fact that's really interesting. Approximately 43% of Swedes live in single-person households, whereas in the United States, only 27% of Americans live in single-person households. So what that tells me is Sweden itself was already a society that had more divisions or more social isolation built into just the way normal life is. You've got more people who live as single people. They are going to have a much easier time socially isolating to some degree.
Yeah.
Now, Sweden's numbers are changing quickly. So it is something that's changing. And it's, once again, it's one of these things where there's a certain group of people who are pinning their arguments on this whole Sweden idea. It's like, oh, Sweden did it the right way. It's like, well, that might change. And so pinning all of your argument on this Sweden thing, which of course is not a very good comparison to the United States.
Yeah.
They're two very different places. What if the whole Sweden situation goes to shit? Well, then it was a terrible argument to be using all along. And to bring it back to the doctor guy, when he mentions the number, I'm like, that's not a good piece of evidence because we don't have all the numbers yet. But when he did talk about, the things that are happening as a result of shelter-in-place orders, I'm like, okay, yeah, focus on that stuff. focus on that stuff. That yes, it is hurting people's mental health. Economics hurts people's mental health.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I just made a criticism video of the Nova Scotia government. They allowed us to go out into parks and trails, and they cited that it's for the betterment of our mental health to get outside and to walk. And I agree with that fully. And I said, okay, so the next time we open up a few things, I want to hear a little emphasis on here's a plan to start repairing some of the economic damage. And it doesn't even have to be specific to like me. I'm not talking about me. I just want them to say something of like, here are a few industries that we're going to start doing a little more activity. And here are a bunch of activities, inspire your population to start doing. It's like, well, you know what you can do in a socially distanced way? You can work on your car because maybe you're not using it that much right now. You can drive it over to your mechanic. The car can sit there for a whole day before the mechanic even gets in it. That's pretty fucking socially distanced. And then, you know, the mechanic says, okay, well, it's done now, but you can't come pick it up for another day just to make sure that we didn't cross contaminate each other. But I cleaned the car anyways. But it's like, you know, do your, I don't know, you can, here's what I'm talking about is inspire people. Just like, do your patriotic duty, get an oil change right now.
Hmm.
You know, do your patriotic duty and start a garden with your neighbor. You don't both have to be in the garden at the same time, you know. And it just like inspire people to do economic things that they can do in a safe manner. This whole idea of like open up the economy, does that include concerts with 20,000 concert goers? That seems like a little bit much. It kind of seems like just as bold and crazy an idea as shutting things down. So basically, we started with that one big, bold, crazy idea, hoping that it's the best. But there's no way we'll ever know. But anyways, I went on about that at length. There's the other thing. I'll just put it at the end of this, just to throw it out there. There's also some suspicion that the two doctors were fake.
Were fake?
Yes, that it was a propaganda video. But I haven't looked into it enough to actually discover whether they're actually real ER doctors or not.
Wow.
But that's another problem we have in our world. It's so easy to make a video look like this is genuine footage and these are genuine doctors talking. I kind of believe they are genuine doctors. I don't think it's a fake video, but I do think the guy who led it, I think he has I think he has some other motivations, and I think he has his own fears. He's just a human being, you know. He's got his own fears and uncertainties as well. Because there was one part where he got to was like, he's like, and you know where that leads to? That leads to violence. That's what he said. That was pretty much a direct quote of what he said. And I'm like, okay, that's scary. He's scared. He's saying a lot of this stuff from a place of fear. And it goes with this idea. Actually, a video just went on my channel 37 minutes ago. It's Rutger Bregman talking about veneer theory, where that, you know, civilized society is just but this thin little veneer, and that it takes a moment of crisis, that it all breaks down into chaos. But over and over and over again through history, when awful things happen, it's proven over and over again that people actually come together and help each other, and that things don't fall apart. It's actually really rare that things all fall to shit.
Yeah, there's a book about that, and I want to read it, but I forget what it's called. It's like, you know, how destruction and chaos, world wars and natural disasters help bring people together.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I'd love to read it. I forget what it's called, but
yeah. So maybe my conclusion. I'm glad you asked the question because I hadn't given a lot of thought to those doctors. Maybe my conclusion is that I think he's really really scared, and I think maybe that's part of it. And then people picked up on that of like, we're jumping within with the fear, and it's like, yeah, we got to change things now. We got to do another crazy right turn. Like it's like maybe we got to slow down
Yeah.
and just one step at a time try and improve from a perspective of being in the present. Criticisms of what happened 2 months ago, sure, I get it, but we're not there right now. I think we kind of need to just be forward looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't steer a massive ship by cranking the wheel.
Yeah, and you know what? You can take that exact thing and say, yeah, that'll be a good post criticism of, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have cranked the wheel right at the beginning, but we did.
Yeah.
We did, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. Do you have anything else?
I think I'm good, and I want to make sure we get under 2 hours so that I don't crash my computer or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Data management. Data management. So important. Actually, that's a big part of my process. Is those moments when I feel less inspired for whatever reason, and I'm like, God, I don't want to shoot that right now, or I don't want to edit that right now. I'm like, at least do something productive. So I go through my files on my hard drive and either back them up onto an external or just delete some completely. Because then when I do get to editing, my system is clearer and my computer works faster. So data management is one of those sort of fail-safe activities just to get through those moments where I'm like, I'm not motivated right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I need that. Today, I actually cleaned up the studio a little bit. So
Awesome.
shoot, you know what? Sorry, I'm messing my audio there. I wanted to take that off. So I put a little table there. That's my workspace, and then the keyboard is right beside. And then the electronic drum set, which is not mine, but it's borrowed from my company, graciously. I'm tucked away. So hopefully I'll get a little office or like a mud mat.
What are you using for light in there?
These are the Fovatech. Yeah, they're like
sweet.
They're pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Fovatech lights. I forget what else is in their name, but yeah. So I got 2 of those. They came in a package, and they were like, yeah, they're cheap and effective. I'm not actually using them right now because I don't know if the natural light is actually better. Because when I turn it on, I guess I could demonstrate right now. It will take a minute to adjust, but it kind of looks more shadowy. Like it makes the backdrop a little bit more. Is this one on? Yeah. Makes the backdrop a little bit more darker, so it puts more light on me. But sometimes I feel like it's just too bright and too white light. Maybe.
Yeah. I know you have limited space, but the idea, if you've got one on each side, is that one is closer and the other is farther. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that, one side of your face is brighter than the other. But also, the problem you're pointing out is some light behind you to light up, say, a bit of the back wall or maybe a bit on the drum set. Just a little bit of light here and there so that it's not just like this one bright ghost sitting in the middle of a dark room. But so I see what you're saying, but it is a nice texture to the light. How much did you pay for those?
I think somewhere around like 150, something like that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, you mentioned it the other day. I was like, yeah, I think I might change this space a little bit. Make it more useful. But anyways, that's maybe a topic for another day.
Yeah, that was a good session.
That was awesome.
Cool.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.
We need a tagline at the end.
Yeah.
It's like something we say every time, like, uh,
A fart orchestra.
fart to you.
Well, I was thinking it would be cool to do like. Sorry, I know we were just about to leave. I love the background of the Halifax Harbor, and I was
Maybe
thinking,
that'll be the name of the show.
yeah, and I was thinking maybe I could put like a backdrop, like do the same thing, but do a
Oh,
backdrop of like Calgary.
yeah, yeah.
So it could be like the Albertan, the perspectives of Albertan and East Coast, or West Coast
Okay.
versus East Coast type of thing.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe we could do a theme around that, but not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Let me think on that. Yeah, that's definitely like prairie to harbor, Alberta, west, east west. Yeah, yeah. That's nice and simple. East west punching bag.
Oh man.
Cool. All right, I can go have dinner now, or start making dinner.
Okay. Enjoy your dinner.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.